The release of Khalida Zia from house arrest that was announced mere hours after her mother's resignation that was declared by the army chief. Is this also something that is something that is on expected lines, according to you?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. Look, she's an elderly woman. She has served her time for her corruption, and yeah, that's fine. At some point, she has to be released. So.
And do you see the BNP now in a favorable position to shape the proceedings and whether Khalida Zia will lead the way from here on?
That I don't know. That is up to them, but I don't think it's going to be Khalida. I think Khalida Zia's health is not well and she's in advanced years, so it will most likely be her son, who unfortunately has been convicted of corruption, of assassinations and terrorism. So if that is who these people end up bringing back into the country, well, Bangladesh's future, and of course, BNP is allied with Jamaat-e-Islam, which is a terrorist organization. So if you have elections without the Awami League, they're the only ones who can win.
Right. Also,
the only one who can beat them in an election is the Awami League, but this government is basically cracking down on the Awami League. So that's what the future holds for Bangladesh.
Right. Also, I must mention two things. You know, there's a lot of talk about whether all of these protests, whether there's a role of Pakistan, ISI. There was a visit to Beijing that we know had to be cut short abruptly, where Sheikh Hasina had visited. There's also the talk of the deep state, the United States, etc., being possibly involved. How do you look at this? And do you think that protests on the scale that they have been taking place in Bangladesh is possible or would have been possible without any foreign hand within it?
No, I don't think so at all. I think there was definitely a lot of coordination. The student protesters were only in the forefront, but behind them, those who were attacking the police, killing the police, they were attacking police stations with firearms. They were heavily armed. They were well coordinated. And that is not possible without external support.
Right. And what would you say to back up those claims in terms of what you've seen? Is it the incidents that took place in China with Beijing reportedly not in your favor? The United States was reportedly upset over different aspects of Sheikh Hasina's policies. Do you think there's been a pattern there that's been reflected?
I don't think China has anything to do with it. China has never interfered in our internal affairs, and they had nothing to do with it this time either. Our policy has always been friendship to all. So India is our neighbor and our dearest friend, but we have good relations with China too. But, you know, Pakistan has been involved in Bangladesh for a long time. Our government had stopped all ISI activity in Bangladesh, all support for the insurgents in India. But I'm sure ISI did not stop trying. And yes, the US called our elections, the State Department announced that our elections weren't free and fair. Why? Because we arrested the militants who had conducted arson attacks in the previous election to ensure a peaceful election. So who knows? Who knows who was involved? I do not have any evidence, but yeah, I think you have hit the nail on the head.
Right. Right. And also, you know, how do you foresee a stable transition to an interim government now in Bangladesh? What is your prediction of what the roadmap ahead is?
Well, that is not for me to say. That is up to Dr. Yunus. We shall see what he's able to do. He's being put in charge. Now the people will see his performance.
Right. And, you know, in the context of Sheikh Hasina here in the national capital, what are your hopes from the Indian government? Of course, she has been a friend to India as far as successive regimes are concerned. Are you hoping that New Delhi would favorably consider a political asylum? What's the thoughts that are going through your mind at the moment?
Oh, I'm sure New Delhi would. There's absolutely no reason why the Indian government, Mr. Modi's government, Prime Minister Modi's government wouldn't. But I think for India, especially with the Islamists as well having free reign in Bangladesh now, that should be the bigger concern. You see, a political party has its following. And even though you've seen this mob, Dr. Yunus, these intellectuals, they do not have a political party. They do not have followers in the villages. They do not have followers everywhere who will follow their ideology and follow their and support them. So this is what you're seeing now in the administration, is that the administration has basically given up. I heard today that administration offices were burned down by the mob. Well, the civil servants are joking, well, when these guys take over, how are they going to run the country? The offices are burnt down. There are not even any chairs to sit on. So, you know, the police aren't listening to them because these guys aren't a political party. We'll see. It remains to be seen. But I seriously doubt. I think this is going to be chaos in Bangladesh. Chaos will continue.
Yes, but you know, my last question to you is this, and a lot of concern, of course, you've referred to this, is the kind of attacks that have been taking place, as you're saying, of course, in government offices and police stations, but also on temples, also on homes. When I put this question across to Mr. Yunus yesterday, he says that perhaps we are exaggerating or taking a one-sided view, and that these need to be investigated, quote unquote. Now, this is something that is very serious, because at the end of the day, if human beings are attacked, it doesn't matter which religion or which part of the country they are from. One certainly expects those in responsible positions to be more responsible in their commentary and be quick to condemn the violence. Do you really see this kind of situation, which could very easily spiral out of control, you know, coming under control in the next regime? How are you looking at things from that perspective of what's going to take place as far as the civil society and this kind of mindless violence that appears to be taking place?
I think you've answered the question yourself. If the person in charge of this interim government says we have to investigate while people are being killed, then I have nothing more to say. You see, the problem with our civil society, they have a loud voice. They get more coverage in media, they get more coverage in print, they get more coverage online, their voice gets heard more. But it doesn't mean that they have leadership capability, that they are able to govern. It's one thing to have an opinion. It's another thing to be able to run a country. Everybody has an opinion. But once you are put in charge, then how do you govern? Well, I think you're seeing that already. You have answered the question already.
All right. Sajeeb Wazed, Joy, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now.